The partisan song, Sag nicht keinmal, was written by Hirsch Glick in the Vilna ghetto. It is one of the most powerful songs of resistance and defiance ever written. While Hitler boasted that his Reich would endure for 1,000 years, it is the Jewish people who have resisted the forces of hatred and have endured, not the murderous Third Reich, which lasted 12 years. Today, long after the demise of Hitler's murderous regime, the partisan song is sung worldwide to mark the Jewish spirit of resistance.
Sag nicht einmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Kannst immer bleiben, verstellen neue Tag. Kommen weg nach unser Häuschen weg der Schau. Es wird erbeugt von unser Trotz, wir seien da. Kommen weg nach unser Häuschen weg der Schau. Es wird erbeugt von unser Trotz, wir seien da.
Never say you are going your last way. So let filled skies above blot out the blue of day. The hour for which we long will certainly appear. The earth shall thunder beneath our tread that we are here.
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Hast Himmel kleine verstehen im neuen Tag. Kleine Welt noch unter Eis gemengte Schau. Es wird ableuchten und der Trott wir seien da. Kleine Welt noch unter Eis gemengte Schau. Es wird ableuchten und der Trott wir seien da.
That there is only death for you, though leaden skies may be concealing days of blue. And because the hour we have hunger for is near, beneath our tread the earth shall tremble, we are here. Because the hour we have hunger for is near, beneath our tread the earth shall tremble, we are here. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Kannst Himmel bleiben, verstellen neue Tag. Kommen weg auf unser Haus geweckte Schau. Es wird erbeugt und unser Trott mit seinen da. Kommen weg auf unser Haus geweckte Schau. Es wird erbeugt und unser Trott mit seinen da.
Grade 10 students representing King David High School Victory Park, a Jewish day school located in South Africa.
As Jews, we have an affiliation with the Holocaust, as in some way we have all been affected by the traumatic events that took place 76 years ago.
As a Jewish nation, we experience our haziness together, and therefore, as a community, every year we commemorate the Holocaust on Yom Hashoah.
As devastating as the Holocaust was, it was also a time to show true courage.
People are selfless. We saw true heroes emerge.
We saw people who refused to sit back and let these atrocities continue. So instead, they took a stand and risked their lives. These people were upstanders.
Like the Bielski Partisans, a resistance group who fought against the Nazis to provide safety to Jews, with a focus on providing safety for women, children, and the elderly.
They risked their own lives and were separated from their families in efforts to save their community. They ensured that more than 1,200 Jews survived the Holocaust, and it is for this reason that the Bielski Partisan Group is known as one of the most significant Jewish resistance groups against the Nazis in World War II. From these upstanders, we would learn lessons of courage, perseverance, and the importance of community.
As quoted in the partisan song, never say you are going on your final road. Like these incredible heroes, we will never stop fighting for our people.
Even though the Holocaust may be over,
The fight against anti-Semitism is still a present threat, and we will continue to fight for our community's rights of safety.
We at King David Victory Park will never forget.
We are here.
Floritul nostru cel răsare într-o zi și marți de tobe noi cântăm, suntem aici.
I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the person you're here to see, a very close friend of ours at the Holocaust Awareness Museum, Mr. Daniel Goldsmith.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure talking to you. So today I'm going to tell you the story of my family. It's my father, my mother, my sister, and myself during the Holocaust. It's a very short version of the period of 1939 through 1945, when my sister was just about born and I was only 8 years old. So first, some background information. We lived in Belgium. And by the way, this is a map that I drew back in 1945. It's a map of Europe. Everything that you see in red are all the countries that the Germans conquered in Europe during World War II. There were approximately 65,000 Jewish people living in Belgium. And we lived in the Jewish section of Antwerp, which then was one of the main ports of embarkation to the United States.
Our next question is, how do you move on after all that you've witnessed in your experience?
Well, I guess as an individual, I can only speak for myself. I'm a very positive individual. I never forget the past, but I don't live in the past. I live in the present. In other words, when I finish speaking to you, I'm going to go on with my daily life. I also am very fortunate I can talk about it. I'm talking about the Holocaust. And to me, it's very good because I feel the need to talk about it. I want to make sure that a thing like that does not get forgotten and does not get repeated.
We are the deputy heads of Herdsdale High School. My name is Rachel Wallman.
I'm John T. Scolby.
My name is Shalia Samakowski. The following poem, The Action in the Ghetto of Roatan, March 1942, is by Alexander Kimmel, a Holocaust survivor. Yom HaShoah's Holocaust Remembrance Day. But we remember the atrocities of the Holocaust, not because we want to, but because we have to, so that it never happens again.
Do I want to remember the peaceful ghetto before the raid? Children shaking like leaves in the wind. Mothers searching for a piece of bread. Shadows on swollen legs, moving with fear. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget?
Do I want to remember the creation of hell, the shouts of the raiders enjoying the hunt, cries of the wounded begging for life, faces of mothers carved with pain, hiding children dripping with fear? No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget?
Do I want to remember my fearful return? Families vanished in the midst of the day. The mass grave steaming with vapor of blood. Mothers searching for children in vain. The pain of the ghetto cuts like a knife. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget?
Do I want to remember the wailing of the night? The doors kicked ajar, ripped feathers floating the air. The night scented with snow-melting blood. While the compassionate moon is showing the way for the faceless shadows searching for kin. No, I don't want to remember, but I cannot forget.
Do I want to remember this world upside down, where the departed are blessed with an instant death, while the living condemned to a short, wretched life, and a long, torturous journey into unnamed place, converting living souls into ashes and gas. No, I have to remember and never let you forget.
I am Benjamin Zar, the head student of Herzliya High School. Never again. These are the words that my Saba and Safta instill on me every year on Yom HaShoah. I'm reminded every year to never forget the hardships and genocide that our people had to endure little over 80 years ago. Often retold the saying without truly understanding the magnitude of what the Holocaust was. As young Jews living in the 21st century, we are often bombarded with ideas of what the Holocaust was and how it is our responsibility to carry on the message of what truly happened. Unfortunately, amongst this effort to encourage education and awareness comes this fear of amalgamation of information that can shift people's views, resulting in some form of normalization. This normalization deters the weight of what the Holocaust truly means to us as a people. Our biggest fear as the Jewish community can turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy. We as Herzlians, however, pride ourselves in never deterring the true reality of what saying never again really means. We are a school of innovators, free thinkers, and above all, students who are proud of being Jewish. Theodor Herzl, a man who died years before the Holocaust, dreamed of a land where Jews could be promised self-determination. We, as Herzlians, are that manifestation of his dream. I believe we should take this opportunity of sadness and despair and turn it into a story of survival and resilience. We are still here. We will never die. If a Jewish school on the southern tip of Africa doesn't prove this, I don't know what does. We will never forget. Thank you.
I'm Aaron Ari, head of the JLL portfolio. The Shoah is as relevant and means as much to me today as it meant to the Jewish people and all of humanity immediately after the liberation of the concentration camps almost 75 years ago. My great-grandparents' family from Rhodes Island were entirely wiped out en route or at Auschwitz, along with many other families. Lador vador, from generation to generation. It is our responsibility to keep the flame burning and remember, honor and pay tribute to the 6 million innocent souls who perished in the Shoah. With our precious survivors and diminishing in number worldwide, it is our privilege and responsibility to remember and honor the suffering and the cruelty endured, the inhumane conditions and the attempt of entire annihilation, for no reason other than them being Jewish. I am proudly Jewish and proudly carry forward their legacy and their greatness and their beliefs. We all today stand on the shoulders of giants.
My name is Daniel Marsden and I am the head of the Zionism portfolio. It is without question that remembering the Holocaust as a form of moral obligation is one of the undisputed acts of a Jew. But I often ask myself, what is our duty as Jewish youth, especially those of us living in the diaspora? We are often told that the responsibility of remembering the atrocities of the Holocaust will fall on our shoulders. However, our responsibilities as Jewish youth can't just solely be to remember. In 2019, I had the privilege of visiting the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington with youth from all around the world, most of whom were not Jewish and many had not heard about the Holocaust before. I was deeply shocked by this and saw it as my obligation to teach them. It was through this experience that I realized what the true purpose of remembering is. Remembering is about teaching. The reason that the teachings of the Torah still exist today is through the lessons passed down from a parent to a child, from a teacher to a student. In order for us as Jewish youth to truly remember those who we lost during the Holocaust, we cannot only keep them in here, but must also continue to tell their stories to the rest of the world so their neshamas can live on forever through those to come.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Almi, and I'm here representing the Holocaust Awareness Museum and Education Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And we're happy this morning and privileged to be joined by Ms. Ruth Hartz, who will be sharing her testimony with you of her experiences in France during, before and during the Second World War and the occupation of Nazi Germany. I think it's best for her to just speak in her own words. So take it away, Ms. Hartz.
I was a hidden child in Nazi-occupied France. And I'll talk in general about hidden children, which is a different set of people. We now, of course, are last survivors of that period. And about 1.5 million children perished in the Holocaust. And they were immediately put to their death the minute they arrived at a camp. So those children who survived were, like me, hidden children. I've met quite a few hidden children over the years. Each story is unique and different, but what we have in common is that we had to hide in very strange places. They could be attics like Anne Frank, pigsties. One friend hid under a table for months on end, and convents, monasteries, pigsties. So what we have in common is that we had to learn how to lie because we could not reveal that we were Jewish. We had to live in very narrow spaces, usually hardly any space to lie down, and most of the time in total darkness, and also in total silence, which is very, very hard for a young child.
When that lady, she fetched you in a car and there were 2 other kids. Were those 2 kids Jewish as well?
Yes, yes. This lady was French. Now, the French Jews thought that they were safe, but it wasn't so safe. At the end of the war, they arrested everyone. So she felt safe to take us, but thinking that nobody would bother her. And I don't think she was bothered, but she still took a risk, but unbeknownst to herself. And driving a car, where did she get a car? I think a resistance member was able to get hold of one. But even if you got a hold of a car, there was no gasoline to be had. So, as I said, you needed a lot of luck also. And people helping you along the way.
In our Jewish social studies class, we had a unit entitled Rescue and Resistance, Choosing Life During the Shoah. We learned about how Jews resisted Nazis during the Holocaust. There are 2 different kinds of resistance that we learned about. The first is spiritual resistance. Some ways that people resisted spiritually were by playing music and doing performances in the ghettos, teaching young children, celebrating Jewish holidays, and not producing as many weapons as the Germans asked for. We also studied armed resistance through researching one partisan and sharing their story with the class. I found this unit very fascinating. It helped me to see the Holocaust in a different light. Instead of just all the tragedy, I also saw all the hope that people had for themselves and others and their resilience in the hardest of times. Resistance does not have to be with a gun and a bullet, Roman Kent reminds us. There were so many other ways people resisted in the Holocaust. I learned about the life of Helen Fagan during the war. She lived in a ghetto for many years, and she would teach her sister and her sister's friends. She was a few years ahead of them in school, and Helen would try to remember what she had studied to teach it to the younger kids. Ruth Brand fasted during Yom Kippur, even though she was only 11 and there were severe punishments. Roman Kent also talked about an orchestra in the ghetto that gave people the strength and will to live another day. I found Helen's story particularly inspirational. She used her resistance to give hope to children. She brought them to a different time and place outside of their own lives through reading to them and telling them stories. Everything she did to resist was to make others feel safe, hopeful, and calm. For my partisan project, I researched Etta Vrobel's story. Etta started her own partisan group and was a strong fighter, both of body and mind. She didn't let any discrimination or pain get in her way of leadership in her partisan unit. I also learned about several other female partisans from my classmates. Vitka Kempner once said, "We made it and the boys did not, because they were tired, and we were tired too, but the women were stronger than the men." I found all of these stories very fascinating. Even in a time of such discrimination against them, some male partisans couldn't see that they too were discriminating against their fellow partisans. Female partisans such as Etta, Vitka, Gertrude Boyarsky, Faye Schulman, and thousands of others went through twice the struggle as their male counterparts during the war. They were facing two fights against inequality. It is so important to learn about resistance during the Holocaust. If we hadn't learned about these fighters, we wouldn't have been able to recognize how many innocent lives were saved by them. I think that learning about Jewish resistance and the partisans should be a top priority for Holocaust education everywhere.
Nanjira, 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 nanjira.